There's a moment that splits your life clean in half, before and after. Mine came on an ordinary Tuesday night when my 7-year-old daughter screamed at me not to take another bite of my wife's beef stew. My name is Daniel Fletcher, and I'm 38 years old. For 12 years, I thought I had everything. A beautiful home in suburban Virginia, 2 incredible kids, Tyler, my 15-year-old son, and Lily, my 7-year-old daughter. A successful career as an attorney, and Valerie, my wife, my college sweetheart, the woman I'd trusted with everything. She'd laced that stew with enough antifreeze to stop my heart. A year of planning, a $2 million insurance policy, a lover named Brody Jameson waiting for his share. The betrayal didn't break me. It forged me into something harder, something that made them wish they'd never drawn breath in my direction. If you've ever been betrayed by someone who swore to love you, then you know why I did what I did next. But let me start from the beginning. Before I go any further, let me know in the comments where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow I will share a story you don't want to miss. The stew smelled incredible. I stood in the doorway of our dining room, loosening my tie, and watched Valerie set the steaming pot on the table. Tender chunks of beef, carrots, potatoes swimming in that rich brown gravy she'd perfected over years of Sunday dinners. 12 hours of contract negotiations had left me wrung out. All I wanted was a hot meal and my family. "Daddy!" Lily hit me like a small missile the second I stepped through the door. 7 years old, blonde pigtails bouncing, but something was wrong. Her hug was too tight, desperate. Her fingers dug into my shirt. "Hey, sweetheart." I kissed the top of her head, but she wouldn't let go. "You okay?" "Uh-huh." Her voice was too small. Her eyes kept darting toward the kitchen. "Where's your brother?" "Tyler's upstairs." "Homework." Valerie appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on a dish towel, that perfect homemaker smile on her face. 36 years old, still beautiful, auburn hair catching the light, green eyes warm. She crossed to me and kissed my cheek. "Hard day? I made your favorite." "You're an angel." I meant it. God help me, I meant it. We sat down at the table, Lily, me, and Valerie. Tyler was still finishing up homework, and Valerie said she'd already eaten while cooking, wasn't hungry. She ladled a generous portion into my bowl and set it in front of me. Steam rose. My stomach growled. I lifted the spoon. "Don't eat that!" The scream was so loud, so raw with terror that I dropped the spoon. It clattered against the bowl, splashing gravy across the tablecloth. Lily launched herself half across the table, her small hands reaching for me, her face white. "Lily!" Valerie's voice cracked like a whip. "What is wrong with you?" "Daddy, don't. Please don't eat it." Tears were streaming down her face. "She put something in it. I saw her." The world stopped. I looked at my daughter, body shaking, genuine fear in her eyes. Then I looked at my wife. And I saw it. That fraction of a second where the mask slipped, where calculation flickered before she caught herself and arranged her features into wounded disbelief. "Daniel, she's been acting out all week. I don't know what's gotten into her. What did you put in it?" My voice was quiet, deadly quiet. "Excuse me?" "Lily." I kept my eyes locked on Valerie. "Tell me exactly what you saw." She had a bottle from under the sink, the blue one. She poured it in when she thought I wasn't looking. "I didn't know what to do, Daddy. I was so scared." "She's lying." Valerie stood so fast her chair toppled backward. "She's 7 years old with an overactive imagination. I can't believe you're entertaining this." "Sit down." Something in my tone stopped her cold. She'd never heard that voice from me. In 12 years, I'd never had cause to use it. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. Valerie's face went white. "Daniel, what are you doing?" "This is insane." "Yes, I need police and an ambulance at 1847 Maple Drive. I believe someone has attempted to poison me. The substance is still in the food. I need it tested." I hung up and looked at my wife. "Sit. Down." She didn't move. "You're going to humiliate me. Humiliate our family. Over a child's fantasy? If it's a fantasy, the test will show that. And you can accept my apology for the rest of your life." I stood, putting myself between her and Lily. "But if it's not a fantasy, If our 7-year-old just saved my life because her mother tried to murder me, then you are going to experience consequences you cannot begin to imagine. You don't know what you're talking about. Her voice was shaking now. You don't know anything. Then educate me, Valerie. Tell me why there's a $2 million life insurance policy on me that you increased 6 months ago. Yeah, I saw the paperwork. I thought it was a mistake. Tell me why you've been working late 3 nights a week when Susan Jameson told me at the school fundraiser that she saw your car parked at the Marriott on Route 7 at 3 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. Her mouth opened, closed. Something shifted behind her eyes, the pretense crumbling, replaced by something cold and hard. Fine. Her voice was flat now, empty. You want the truth? I've been planning this for a year. I'm done, Daniel. Done with this boring, predictable, suffocating life. Done pretending to be the happy wife while you work yourself to death and I rot in this suburban prison. Brody loves me. He wants me. And the $2 million was going to be our fresh start. I felt Lily's hand clutch my shirt, her body shaking. My daughter had just heard her mother confess to attempted murder. You were going to orphan our children. My voice was barely above a whisper. For money. For another man. They'd have been fine. Kids are resilient. And I'd have made sure they were taken care of. Taken care of? The roar erupted from somewhere deep in my chest. Tyler appeared at the top of the stairs, eyes wide. You were going to murder their father and you think writing a check makes that fine? Keep your voice down. No, Valerie. I will not keep my voice down. I stepped toward her and she stepped back. Good. Here's what's going to happen. The police are coming. They're going to test that stew. They're going to find whatever poison you put in it. And then they're going to arrest you. And while you're sitting in a cell tonight, I want you to think about every single choice that led you to this moment. Because I promise you on our children's lives, that by the time I'm done, you will have nothing. No money. No freedom. No Brody. Nothing but the wreckage of the life you tried to steal from me. Sirens. Distant but approaching. Daniel. For the first time, real fear crept into her voice. We can talk about this. We're done talking. I pulled both kids close. But please, keep confessing. I'm sure the officers will find it very helpful. The cruisers pulled up outside, lights painting the walls red and blue. I watched Valerie's face as reality set in. Watched the calculation fail. Watched the dawning horror as she understood that she had lost. She had no idea how much she was about to lose. 72 hours after the arrest, I sat in my home office with documents spread across the desk like evidence at a crime scene. Gerald Whitlock sat across from me, silver hair catching the lamplight, his wire-rimmed glasses perched on his nose as he sorted through bank statements with the precision of a surgeon. The toxicology report had come back definitive. Ethylene glycol, antifreeze, enough in that stew to cause fatal kidney failure within days. Valerie was being held without bail, charged with attempted first-degree murder. I had emergency temporary custody of Tyler and Lily, and the kids were upstairs with a counselor right now, beginning the long process of unpacking what their mother had done. But I wasn't waiting for the courts to deliver justice on their own timeline. I needed to know everything, every detail, every plan she'd made, every lie she'd told. That's where Gerald came in. She's been siphoning money for 14 months, Gerald said, sliding a spreadsheet toward me. Started small, 50 here, 100 there. Then it got bigger. By month 6, she was pulling 2,000-3,000 at a time. I stared at the numbers, the dates, the steady escalation. Where'd it go? Separate account. Opened it under her maiden name, Valerie Hoffman. There's over $40,000 in it right now. He tapped another document. That was going to be her and Brody's seed money. New life, fresh start, funded entirely by your work. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from rage so cold it felt like ice crystallizing in my veins. What else? Credit card. Gerald pulled out another statement. She opened it in your name. Forged your signature on the application. Ran up $32,000 in debt. Hotels, the Marriott on Route 7, the Hilton downtown, a bed and breakfast in Charlottesville, jewelry from Cartier, designer bags from Nordstrom, all the things she'd need for her affair, all billed to you. And when I died, those debts would have been paid from my estate. Exactly. No one would have questioned it. Just another expense tied to your accounts settled during probate. She was counting on the fact that dead men don't review their credit card statements. I remembered a night 6 months ago, Valerie coming home with a new bracelet, telling me she'd splurged with her own money, that she deserved something nice. I'd kissed her forehead and told her she was worth it. That bracelet had cost $4,000. My $4,000. Phone records, Gerald continued. She's been in contact with Brody Jameson for 2 years. Regular calls, texts. But 6 months ago, the pattern changed. The calls from her normal phone stopped. That's when she went dark. Burner phones. 3 of them. Cash purchases at different stores. One in Fairfax, one in Arlington, one out in Leesburg. I only found them because she made one mistake. He smiled thinly. Used her grocery store loyalty card at the Fairfax location. Saved herself $2 on batteries, cost her everything. I would have laughed if I wasn't so furious. 14 months of meticulous planning, and she'd tripped over a grocery discount. Get me everything, I said, every transaction, every message you can recover from those burner phones, every lie she told, every dollar she stole. I want a complete picture of exactly how she planned to murder me and steal my children's inheritance. Gerald nodded slowly. There's something else you should know. I looked up. I ran a background check on Brody Jameson. He's not just some random guy she met at a bar. He's a financial advisor, licensed, reputable firm downtown. And Daniel... Gerald slid one more document across the desk. He helped her restructure that life insurance policy. His signature is on the paperwork, right here, listed as her consultant. I stared at Brody's signature. Neat, professional, right next to Valerie's on the policy amendment form. The one that increased my coverage from $500,000 to $2 million. He wasn't just sleeping with my wife. No, Gerald said. He was her accomplice. He's complicit in insurance fraud at minimum. Possibly conspiracy to commit murder depending on how much he knew about the antifreeze. The pieces clicked into place. Brody wasn't a lovesick fool who'd been manipulated by a beautiful woman. He was a financial professional who'd looked at my life insurance policy, looked at my wife, and seen an opportunity. He'd helped her set up the payout, helped her plan the theft, maybe even helped her plan the murder itself. Can we prove it? With what I found? Gerald's smile turned sharp. Absolutely. His signature alone ties him to the fraud. Add in the financial trail, the burner phones, the money she was siphoning. We can bury him. I sat back in my chair. Thought about Brody Jameson in his downtown office, probably still going to work every day, still advising clients, still pretending to be a respectable professional, still thinking he'd gotten away with it. He had no idea what was coming. I looked at Gerald. Then let's make sure he goes down with her. Brody Jameson lived in one of those glass tower condos downtown, the kind with a doorman, valet parking, and a view of the Potomac that probably cost him 6 figures a year. I'd looked up the address in Gerald's report. 41st floor, corner unit. I showed up unannounced on a Saturday morning. The doorman tried to stop me, but I told him I was Brody's attorney and had urgent business. He let me up. People always believe lawyers. Brody answered the door in a cashmere sweater and pressed slacks, looking like he'd just stepped out of a catalog. Handsome in that slick, over-polished way, styled dark hair, practiced smile. The smile died the second he saw my face. Daniel. I pushed past him into the condo. Floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture, everything expensive and carefully arranged. The home of a man who spent a lot of time thinking about how things looked. Close the door, Brody. We need to talk. I don't think that's a good idea. My lawyer said I shouldn't. Your lawyer can't help you. I turned to face him. Nothing can help you. But if you're very, very smart in the next 10 minutes, you might avoid spending the next 20 years in prison. He closed the door. His hands were trembling. I didn't know about the poison. The words came out in a rush. I swear to God, Daniel, I didn't know she was going to. I thought we were just what? I stepped closer. He stepped back. Just defrauding my life insurance? Just planning to live off the money from my death? Just sleeping with my wife while she plotted to make our children fatherless? It wasn't supposed to. She said she was going to divorce you. Take half in the settlement. The insurance, that was just Just a backup. Just in case the divorce didn't what, Brody? Didn't net her enough to keep you in Kashmir? I gestured at his sweater. Didn't give you enough to maintain this lifestyle while you played house with another man's wife? I love her. His voice cracked. I know you don't want to hear that, but I do. I love her, and she was miserable with you, and I thought I was rescuing her. The laugh that came out of me was ugly. Rescuing her, that's beautiful. You were rescuing her right into $2 million of my money. Money she was going to get by feeding me antifreeze and watching me die over the course of a week. I moved closer. He backed against the window. Do you know what ethylene glycol does to the human body, Brody? Do you know how I would have died? I didn't wait for an answer. First, I'd have felt drunk, dizzy, confused. Valerie would have put me to bed, told the kids Daddy wasn't feeling well. Then the vomiting would start, the headaches. By day 3, my kidneys would begin to fail. By day 5, I'd be in the hospital and they'd probably think it was natural kidney failure, some sudden illness. By day 7, I'd be dead. And you'd have comforted my grieving widow at my funeral and helped her cash that check. He was crying now, actual tears streaming down his face, his expensive sweater shaking with sobs. I didn't know. I swear I didn't. I pulled out my phone. Showed him the screen. The recording app, red dot blinking. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to tell me everything. Every conversation you had with Valerie about the insurance. Every meeting where you helped her restructure the policy. Every single moment where you should have realized that increasing a healthy, 38-year-old man's life insurance to $2 million with his wife as sole beneficiary maybe, just maybe, warranted some questions. And then you're going to write a statement, sign it. And that statement is going to the prosecutor, to the insurance company, and to your licensing board. That'll destroy me. You destroyed yourself the moment you decided my life was an acceptable casualty in your love story. I sat down on his expensive leather couch, made myself comfortable. Start talking. And Brody, if I think you're leaving anything out, anything at all, I'm walking straight to the police and telling them you were in on the murder from the beginning. Given what I already have on you, how do you think that'll go? He talked for 2 hours. I got everything. 2 weeks after Valerie's arrest, I sat across from Marianne Costello in her downtown office. 52 years old, steely-eyed, with a reputation for being absolutely vicious in custody disputes. They called her the closer because she never lost. I thought she'd tell me the custody situation was straightforward. I was wrong. The Hoffmans filed for emergency custody this morning, Marianne said, sliding a stack of documents across her desk. Albert and Roseanne. They're claiming you're unstable. That the children need maternal influence. I stared at her. Their daughter tried to murder me. I know. The children watched her get arrested. They're in therapy dealing with the trauma of learning their mother is a monster. And her parents think they should have custody? They don't have a strong case, Marianne said. Grandparents' rights in Virginia are extremely limited. And given that their daughter is facing attempted murder charges, no judge is going to grant them custody or even unsupervised visitation. But they're going to try. Oh, they're absolutely going to try. The Hoffmans have money and they've hired Jared Pennington. He's good, I won't lie. Their angle is going to be that you're too emotionally volatile to parent effectively. That you're poisoning the children against their mother. That you're using them as pawns. I thought about Lily's face when she screamed at me not to eat. Thought about Tyler crying in his room every night since his mother's arrest. What do? We document everything. Every interaction with the Hoffmans, every statement they make. We get therapists involved, ones who will testify that the children are thriving with you and would be traumatized by being placed with relatives who are defending their mother's attempted murder. And most importantly, Daniel. We stay calm. We don't give them anything to use. That was harder than she knew. A week later, I pulled into my driveway after picking Tyler up from soccer practice. Albert Hoffman was standing there, hands in the pockets of his expensive coat, looking at my house like he owned it. 64 years old, retired surgeon, the kind of man who'd never been told no in his life. Tyler, go inside, I said quietly. My son didn't argue. He grabbed his bag and disappeared through the front door. I walked toward Albert. You're trespassing. Leave. I want to see my grandchildren. Your daughter tried to kill me. Your grandchildren watched her get arrested. They're in therapy dealing with the trauma. And you think showing up here unannounced is going to help them? Valerie made a mistake. A mistake? I was in his face before I knew I'd moved. She poured antifreeze in my food. She planned it for a year. She was going to watch me die and then cash in. That's not a mistake, Albert. That's premeditated murder. She was unhappy. If you'd been a better husband? The words hit me like a slap. You ever have someone blame you for your own attempted murder? For not being good enough to prevent someone from trying to poison you? Get off my property. My voice was shaking with the effort of not putting my hands on him. Get off my property before I call the police and have you arrested for harassment. And tell Roseanne that if either of you come near my children again without a court order, I will make it my life's mission to ensure you never see them until they're 18. Do you understand me? He stared at me for a long moment. His face was unreadable. Then, slowly, he smiled. It was a cold smile, a threatening smile. We'll see you in court, Daniel. Valerie's trial was set for October, 6 months after that night in the kitchen. 6 months of watching my children heal in therapy while their mother sat in county lockup awaiting her day in court. The prosecution had everything. Toxicology report showing ethylene glycol in the stew. My testimony, Lily's testimony, given in chambers with a victim advocate because she was 7 and terrified. Gerald's financial evidence. Brody's signed statement, every word of it implicating Valerie in insurance fraud and conspiracy. Her defense attorney tried to plead it down to reckless endangerment, claimed she'd been suffering from a mental breakdown, never intended to actually kill me, just a cry for help that went too far. The prosecutor wasn't having it. Clara Mendez, 48 years old, shoulder-length black hair, serious dark eyes that had seen 2 decades of domestic violence cases. She'd built a reputation for securing convictions in difficult cases, for cutting through defense manipulation with surgical precision. Her opening statement was devastating. Mrs. Fletcher purchased antifreeze in cash, 2 weeks before the incident, from a store 20 miles outside her usual shopping area, Clara told the jury, standing directly in front of them with no notes. She researched ethylene glycol poisoning on her laptop, searches she thought she'd deleted but which our forensic team recovered. She increased her husband's life insurance to $2 million 6 months prior, with the help of her lover, who is currently facing his own charges for insurance fraud and conspiracy. This was not a breakdown. This was not a cry for help. This was a calculated, premeditated attempt to murder a man for money. I watched the jurors' faces, watched them glance at Valerie, who sat at the defense table in a modest dress, hair pulled back, looking like the picture of a remorseful wife who'd made a terrible mistake. She cried at all the right moments, dabbed her eyes with a tissue, never once looked at me. I testified for 3 hours. I described finding Lily crying in her room the night before the incident, telling me she had a bad feeling but couldn't explain why. I described the moment my daughter screamed at me not to eat. I described watching Valerie's face when she realized she'd been caught. That split-second calculation before she pivoted from denial to confession. I described finding the financial evidence, the burner phones, the web searches Gerald had recovered. Mr. Fletcher, the defense attorney asked on cross-examination, isn't it true that your marriage had been struggling for some time? I wasn't aware of any struggle. I thought we were happy. But you worked 60-hour weeks. You traveled frequently for business. You left your wife alone. I provided for my family. My voice was steady, cold. I came home every night. I coached my son's soccer team. I never raised my hand, never raised my voice, never gave her any reason to feel unsafe or unloved. If she was unhappy, she could have asked for a divorce. She could have asked for marriage counseling. She didn't. She chose to pour poison in my food and watch me eat it. The defense attorney didn't have a response to that. Clara's closing argument was surgical. She laid out the timeline, the planning, the lover, the money. Every piece of evidence arranged like weapons on a table. Then she looked at the jury and said, Valerie Fletcher looked at her husband across the dinner table, the father of her children, a man who by all accounts loved her and provided for her. And she made a choice. Not a mistake. A choice. She chose to end his life so she could have his money. Only the courage of a 7-year-old girl stopped her from succeeding. Don't let her claim victimhood. Don't let her claim insanity. Hold her accountable for the choice she made. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty of attempted first-degree murder. Guilty of conspiracy to commit insurance fraud. Sentencing, 23 years. When the verdict was read, Valerie finally looked at me. There was nothing in her eyes. No remorse. No anger. No tears or pleading or recognition of what she'd destroyed. Just emptiness. Like she'd already stopped being a person. I felt nothing for her. Nothing at all. I thought the criminal conviction would end it. I was wrong. 2 weeks after sentencing, Marianne Costello called me with news that made my vision go red. The Hoffmans filed for emergency custody. They're claiming you're psychologically abusing the children by preventing contact with their mother. They have a psychiatrist, someone they're paying obviously, who submitted a report saying the children are showing signs of parental alienation syndrome. I stood in my kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, and felt the floor drop out from under me. That's insane. Lily has nightmares about what happened. Tyler won't even say his mother's name. They're showing signs of trauma from their mother trying to murder their father. I know. Marianne's voice was tight, professional, but I could hear the anger underneath. But the Hoffmans have money, and Jared Pennington is pulling every string he has. They got it assigned to Judge Richard Tatum. He's older, traditional, tends to favor keeping children connected to both sides of the family. I sat down heavily at the kitchen table. The same table where I'd eaten meals with my kids every night since Valerie's arrest. The same table where Tyler had finally laughed again last week at one of my terrible jokes. What are our options? We need to counter their expert with our own. I'm reaching out to Dr. Eunice Carpenter. She's one of the top child psychologists in the state, and she doesn't sell opinions. If she evaluates the kids and says they're better off with you, that'll carry weight. But Daniel, she paused. I need you to prepare for the possibility that the judge grants supervised visitation with the grandparents. Not custody, but access. If that happens, you'll need to be gracious about it, at least publicly. Anything that makes you look vindictive or controlling will hurt us. Gracious. These people had defended their daughter after she tried to kill me. They'd called me a bad husband. They'd shown up at my home and tried to intimidate me, and I was supposed to be gracious. Do what you need to do, I said. But Marianne, I am not losing my children. I don't care what it takes. You won't, she said. I promise you. I wanted to believe her. That night I heard Lily crying. It was past midnight. I'd been lying awake running through worst-case scenarios trying to build a strategy for something I'd thought was already finished. I went to her room and found her sitting up in bed, tears streaming down her face, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Hey, sweetheart. Bad dream? She nodded, reaching for me. I sat on the edge of her bed and pulled her into my lap. You want to tell me about it? Mommy was putting something in all the food. Her voice was so small, so scared. In everything, the cereal and the sandwiches and the juice boxes, and I tried to stop her, but she wouldn't listen and you kept eating and I couldn't make you stop and, shh, it's okay. It was just a dream. But it wasn't just a dream, Daddy. It happened. She really did it. My throat tightened. I know, but she can't do it anymore. She's gone. She can't hurt us. But what if she comes back? What if the judge makes us see her? Out of the mouths of children. That won't happen, baby. I promise. You can't promise that. She looked up at me with those enormous eyes that had seen too much, understood too much. Grandma and Grandpa want us to see her. I heard you on the phone. I held her tighter, felt real fear for the first time since this whole nightmare started. Not fear of Valerie. Not fear of prison or financial ruin or public humiliation. Fear that I could lose my children. Despite everything. Despite the evidence, the conviction, the justice I'd fought for. I could still lose them. Listen to me. I pulled back so I could look at her face. Nobody is taking you away from me. Nobody. Do you understand? I will do whatever it takes to keep you and Tyler safe. Whatever it takes. She buried her face in my shoulder and cried until she fell asleep. I carried her back to bed, tucked her in, kissed her forehead. Then I went downstairs and sat in the dark. I wouldn't survive losing them. I knew that with absolute certainty, which meant I couldn't let it happen. I didn't sleep after putting Lily back to bed. I sat at my desk in the home office, staring at the stack of legal documents Marianne had sent over. The Hoffmans' custody petition, their expert's report, the motion for emergency placement. Reading it made my blood boil, but anger wasn't going to win this fight. Strategy would. I'd spent my entire career at the firm advising clients how to navigate impossible situations, corporate disputes, contract negotiations, hostile takeovers. The principle was always the same. Stop reacting and start controlling the narrative. Stop defending and start attacking. The Hoffmans wanted to paint me as an unfit father. Fine. I'd prove the opposite so thoroughly that no judge could question it. But more than that, I'd prove they were the dangerous ones. Because here's what I understood that they didn't. People who defend their daughter after she tries to murder her husband. People who show up at that husband's house and blame him for her actions. People who file for custody of traumatized children to maintain access to a would-be murderer. Those people have something fundamentally wrong with them. And I was going to find out what. I called Gerald Whitlock at 7:30 that morning. I need you to investigate Albert and Roseanne Hoffman. There was a pause. The grandparents? Everything. Finances, professional history, any skeletons buried anywhere. If they're willing to defend Valerie after what she did, there's something wrong with them. I want to know what. This isn't going to be cheap, Daniel. I don't care what it costs. These people are trying to take my children. Find me leverage. Gerald was quiet for a moment. Then, I'll call you when I have something. 2 weeks later, he called. You were right, Gerald said. There's something wrong with them. I leaned back in my chair, put the phone on speaker. Talk to me. Albert Hoffman was involved in a malpractice case 15 years ago. A patient died on his table, cardiac surgery gone wrong. The family sued. The case was settled quietly for an undisclosed sum, but I found the original complaint. My pulse quickened. And? They alleged that Dr. Hoffman had been drinking before the surgery. Said he was impaired when he operated. The hospital buried it because he was a major donor and had tenure. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Can we prove the drinking? I have a sworn statement from a scrub nurse who was in the OR that day. Her name's Patricia Vance. She left the hospital shortly after. Felt she'd been pressured to stay quiet. She's willing to talk now. Says she saw Albert in the break room before surgery, smelled alcohol on his breath, raised concerns with the attending, and was told to keep her mouth shut. I sat forward. She'll testify? If needed. She's carried guilt about it for 15 years. She wants to do the right thing. I thought about Albert standing in my driveway telling me Valerie had made a mistake. Thought about him blaming me for his daughter's attempted murder. A surgeon who'd killed a patient while drunk. And buried it. What about Roseanne? Cleaner, but interesting. She's on the board of 3 different charities, pillar of the community, all that. But one of those charities had a financial audit 2 years ago. Minor irregularities, funds that couldn't be accounted for. It got smoothed over, but the records exist. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. A surgeon who may have killed a patient while intoxicated. A socialite with possible financial improprieties in her charity work. And these were the people claiming I was an unfit parent. I smiled. Perfect. The knock came at 8:43 on Monday night. I wasn't expecting anyone. Tyler was upstairs finishing homework and Lily had gone to bed an hour ago. The custody hearing was scheduled for 9 a.m. Tomorrow, less than 12 hours away. Marianne had called earlier to go over final prep, confirm our witnesses, review the timeline. Everything was ready. I opened the door and found Albert Hoffman standing on my porch. But he looked different, older. The shoulders that had carried surgical authority for 40 years were slumped now. His expensive coat hung loose, like he'd lost weight. His eyes, those cold, calculating eyes that had stared me down in my own driveway, looked hollow. Can we talk? His voice was quiet. I considered slamming the door in his face. I considered calling the police and having him removed for violating the no-contact order Marianne had filed. Instead, I stepped onto the porch and pulled the door closed behind me. You've got 2 minutes. We're going to drop the custody petition. I stared at him. Waited. Why? He swallowed. Looked away. Because my attorney advised me that if this goes forward, certain things about my professional history might become public, and Roseanne's charity work. Things that would be embarrassing. Embarrassing. The word tasted bitter in my mouth. Your daughter tried to murder me, Albert. She planned it for a year. She was going to watch me die and cash in on my life insurance. And you're worried about embarrassment? We were wrong. The words seemed to physically hurt him. We were wrong to defend her. We were wrong to blame you. We were wrong to try to take the children. I know that now. I let the silence stretch. Let him stand there squirming. You know it because you got caught. My voice was flat. Cold. Because I found out about the patient you killed while you were drunk. About the money Roseanne can't account for. You're not here because you're sorry, Albert. You're here because you're afraid. He didn't deny it. Just stood there, looking at his shoes like a scolded child. Here's what's going to happen. I kept my voice low, controlled. You're going to drop the petition. You're going to issue a public statement saying that you and Roseanne support my full custody, that you were wrong to question my fitness as a father, and then you're going to disappear from our lives. No contact with me, no contact with Tyler, no contact with Lily, unless and until they choose to reach out when they're adults. If you violate any of this, if I see you on my street, if I hear you've called the kids, if you so much as send a birthday card, I will make sure every newspaper in Virginia knows about that dead patient and how you got away with it. Do you understand? He looked up. There were tears in his eyes. I didn't care. Do you understand, Albert? Yes. His voice broke. I understand. Then we're done. I went back inside and closed the door. Didn't watch him walk away. Didn't look through the window to see him leave. The custody war was over. Marianne called at 7:15 the next morning. They dropped it. Her voice carried satisfaction I'd rarely heard from her. Filed the withdrawal at 6 a.m. The statement just went out. I was making breakfast. Scrambled eggs, toast, trying to keep my hands busy while my mind churned. I set down the spatula. What does it say? Everything you wanted. Full support for your custody. Acknowledgement that they were wrong to question your fitness as a father. Commitment to respect your family's privacy moving forward. She paused. Daniel, I've been practicing family law for 25 years. This is the most comprehensive surrender I've ever seen. I closed my eyes, felt something loosen in my chest. Thank you, Marianne. You did this, not me. You fought for your children, and you won. After I hung up, I stood in the kitchen for a long moment. Upstairs, I could hear Tyler moving around, getting ready for school. Lily would be up soon. They'd go to class today, not knowing that the threat hanging over us, the possibility of being forced into contact with grandparents who defended their mother's attempted murder, was gone. They'd just be kids again. That's all I'd ever wanted. 2 weeks later, Brody pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit insurance fraud. I heard about it through Gerald, who'd stayed in touch to see the whole thing through. Brody lost his license, paid substantial fines, got 3 years probation. His name would be forever linked to attempted murder in every background check, every Google search, every conversation about who he used to be. His career was over. His reputation was ash. I thought about him sometimes. Brody sitting in that expensive condo crying, claiming he'd been rescuing Valerie from a loveless marriage. Brody who'd helped restructure my life insurance so my wife could collect $2 million after poisoning me to death. Did I feel sorry for him? No. He'd made his choices. He'd faced the consequences. That was justice. Valerie appealed her conviction. The appeal was denied. She'd serve at least 15 years before she was even eligible for parole. By then, Tyler would be 25. Lily would be 22. They'd have lived their entire childhoods without her. They'd have graduated high school, gone to college, built lives, all without their mother. Dr. Carpenter's evaluation came back exactly as Marianne had predicted. Tyler and Lily were thriving with me. Lily's nightmares were decreasing. She'd gone 2 weeks without one. Tyler was pulling straight A's, had made the travel soccer team, was laughing at dinner again. They needed stability. They needed safety. They needed their father. That's what the report said. That's what the court acknowledged. On Christmas morning, I sat on the couch watching Tyler and Lily tear into their presents. New cleats for him, art supplies for her, and I felt something I hadn't felt since that night in the kitchen. Peace. Not happiness, exactly. Not yet. But peace. The knowledge that I'd protected them, that I'd fought for them, that I'd won. Steve came by that afternoon with his wife and kids for dinner. He pulled me aside while the children played in the backyard, all of them bundling up against the December cold, their laughter carrying through the windows. You did it, man. You actually did it. I didn't have a choice. That's where you're wrong. He looked at me seriously. A lot of guys would have crumbled, would have let the lawyers handle it and hoped for the best. You didn't. You went to war. And you won. He was right. I had gone to war. Not just for revenge, though I'd wanted that too, but because it was the only way to protect my children, the only way to ensure they had a future, a life they deserved. Valerie had tried to take that from them. She'd failed. 2 years later, I was sitting on the back porch with Juliet, watching Tyler kick a soccer ball with Lily, while Adam toddled after them on unsteady legs. Juliet, warm, kind, patient, had come into our lives 3 years after the divorce. I'd brought Lily's rescue dog in for shots, and Juliet had smiled at me across the exam table, and something had just clicked. She loved Tyler and Lily like they were her own. Never tried to replace Valerie, never could have, but gave them something Valerie never had: genuine warmth, real maternal care. We'd married a year ago. Adam was born 6 months after that. Tyler was 15 now, in high school, talking about engineering programs for college. When he'd turned 16, I'd told him he could write to Valerie if he wanted to, that I wouldn't stop him or judge him. He'd said no, said he didn't have anything to say to her. I told him I understood. Lily was in middle school, fierce, funny, brilliant. She'd asked me once if I thought Valerie had ever really loved us. I'd told her the truth. I didn't know. Maybe Valerie had loved us once and something broke inside her. Maybe she'd never loved anyone but herself. Either way, it didn't matter. What mattered was that we were safe now, happy, a family. I'd gotten a letter from Valerie last month, handwritten, from the Virginia Correctional Center for Women. She wanted to apologize, wanted to explain, wanted pictures of the children. I read it once, then I burned it. Through the legal grapevine, I heard updates. Valerie wasn't adjusting well. She'd been moved between facilities after an altercation with another inmate. Brody had vanished after his probation ended, probably changed his name, moved somewhere no one knew him. Albert and Roseanne had cut off contact after their public humiliation. Valerie was alone, completely alone. Did I feel sorry for her? No. She'd made her choices. She'd tried to murder me for money. She'd traumatized our children. She deserved every second of her solitude. Juliet reached over and squeezed my hand. What are you thinking about? I looked at Tyler, at Lily, at Adam. That this is what I fought for. This is what I won. Valerie was sitting in a cell somewhere alone with 23 years to think about what she'd thrown away. I hoped those consequences kept her company for the rest of her life. I believe stories such as this find us for a reason. If this one touches you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day. In the meantime, there are 2 stories on the screen that are even better.